being safe and responsible doesn't always happen when the family stone gets involved. But before I get to that, I want you to take us on a little bit of a journey. Tell us how you first got into the wrestling business.
Well, I mean, I obviously, probably like you and everybody else listening, I grew up a fan of the business, like absolutely obsessed over it, and just couldn't get enough of it, and just consumed every minute of it that I could. And while other people matured and went on to do things like chase after girls and smoke marijuana, I stayed with the wrestling thing and just absolutely loved it. And a couple of years ago, maybe it's about 6 years ago now, I was working as a producer on a documentary, an Iron Sheik documentary, actually, that's coming out this month. And when we were filming the documentary, I was going around and interviewing all these wrestlers, and one of the guys that I met was Colt Cabana. And Colt and I hit it off really easily because, he's a pretty funny guy. He's a likable guy. We both are Jewish entertainers, and which is rare in the wrestling world. And we hit it off and we became friends. And at that point, I was doing a podcast. I do a show called TSM Radio, and Colt was really getting into podcasting. And so I told him, I'd help him get a podcast going if he would get me into wrestling. And so sure enough, we got his podcast off the ground, which, by the way, is one of the most, if you don't listen to the Art of Wrestling podcast, it's phenomenal. Colt's doing groundbreaking stuff with that show, and who knew that it was going to be as big as it turned out to be for him. But it's fantastic. And he lived up to his end of the bargain, and after a couple of false starts with some other promotions that never really took off, I got a meeting. Colt set me up a meeting with Dave Marquez, who was launching this new show, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and he was looking for an announcer, someone to be either like a backstage interviewer or just like a vanilla kind of like analyst in the booth. And I went and met Marquez and told him how badly I wanted to be a part of it, and he called me a couple days. I didn't hear from him for a couple days, so I thought, probably nothing's going to happen. And then he called me and told me that he had a spot for me and to come down to taping. It was the second ever taping of the show. So, and I never looked back. I've been with Championship Wrestling from Hollywood since day 2. And the first match that I commentated, I believe, was like Claudio Castagnoli versus Willie Mack. And then like Austin Aries versus Adam Pearce. Like, it was like all these great wrestlers. I couldn't believe it. So at first, before he would let me even, he tried me out on a couple of matches. It wasn't going that great. So the next taping I came in, we used to have women's matches on our show back in the day. And so he only let me commentate the women's matches for a little while. And it just wasn't going that great. And, just for whatever reason, it wasn't working with me being just like a Bruno Sammartino kind of analyst, where I wasn't really able to show any kind of personality, just kind of a neutral, a guy watching a match, commenting on it, you know what I mean? And sure enough, they brought in on it, there was a couple tapings a couple of years ago where Excalibur from PWG was doing commentary for, I don't know if you remember that far back, but Excalibur was doing commentary for us for about 6 months. And during that period, they told me like they didn't want me to do commentary anymore, and they wanted to try something else with me, and they were going to have me, do an angle where I got fired. And they just they told me to go in the ring and cut a promo about how I shouldn't have been fired. And from there, it took off. I went in the ring, I slapped the ring announcer, I pushed a ref, I went nuts, and I became Stu Stone, and we started the Family Stone, and it was going really, really great. And I had the time of my life, literally. It's been a dream come true being a part of that. And sure enough, when it all came back around, I ended up going back to the commentary table. And it's been an unbelievable experience getting to work with guys like Todd Kenley, who is a master in, I learned everything from him. And now I'm working with Johnny LaQuasto, who's done a phenomenal job. And it's just, it's so much fun being a part of that show. It's really, if you don't watch Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, you're really missing out. It's a wrestling show for real wrestling fans. Everybody's got a storyline going. There's good quality matchups going on. The main events, deliver. it's been a phenomenal project to be a part of, and it's grown so much. I mean, we've been on the air for years now, and now we have huge crowds that turn up to the tapings, and it's just all starting to kind of come together right now. It's like you put in a lot of work to build up a brand, and it seems like it's starting to finally pay off now, which is really, really great.